At T-Mobile, we're declaring the end of data limits. Introducing T-Mobile One. One price, all unlimited for everyone. That's right. Get unlimited 4G LTE data on your smartphone on our network that was built to handle it. And get it at a price that won't break the bank. With 4 lines of unlimited LTE data for just $35 a line per month with AutoPay. Switch today.
Top 3% of data users greater than 26 gigabytes per month may see reduced speeds until next bill cycle. Video typically streams at 480p with qualifying credit discount via bill credit plus taxes and fees.
Blog Talk Radio.
Welcome to R.E.I.G.N Blog Talk Radio Show with your host and creator, Minister Annie Bell, the founder and executive director of Wealth Management Ministries Incorporated. We are providing talk therapy to survivors of child abuse, sex trafficking, and other traumas. Please enjoy the show. You hang it down, afraid to let it out, shackle to change the hurt you feel the same. I'm more than a conqueror, I'm more than a victim. I rise, I win, the chains are broken.
Hello again, my friends. You are tuned in to R.E.I.G.N Blog Talk Radio Show. And I just want to halt for a minute and say, don't y'all just love that jingle? I want to thank my friend and musical director, Clifton Dial, who wrote that song and recorded it. And, you know, I just love it because it really speaks to what we are about. We're here to help reign together. And ultimately that we may endure, that we may reign with Christ when he comes. Again, thank you so much for joining us here tonight. I am Minister Annie Bell, the host and creator of R.E.I.G.N Blog Talk Radio Show, which is an outreach of Wealth Management Ministries. We endeavor to bring talk therapy to survivors of child abuse, sex trafficking, and other traumas, as well as providing a platform to bring awareness and resources in the hopes of preventing those atrocities. Well, tonight, you probably may have tuned in because we're talking about survival sex, and maybe you haven't heard of it. And tonight we want to shed some light, especially since we're talking about it for our youth, our teens. So there are many children and youth who run away from their homes every year in the United States. They leave their home believing that what they are leaving behind has to be far worse than their trek into the unknown. Now they're quasi-liberated from whatever they were running away from, and they run smack dab into the reality that food, shelter, and basic human necessities are not readily available to them on the streets. After a few days of sleeping in the cold or in the heat and having no food, preservation stage kicks into high gear. Well, they can't just get a job. Remember, they are underage and without work experience. They could start stealing, but how long will that luck run before they get caught? So soon they learn that they can trade their bodies for food, shelter, and even drugs. Because, yes, a lot of the runaways have to find or cope with their situation through drug usage. Well, we are going to take a virtual journey through the lives of our youth who engage in survival sex. Tonight, I am joined by Felicia Ingram, an anti-human trafficking advocate. She is also one of our administrators on the R.E.I.G.N Facebook group, who does an excellent job of keeping us all in the know about sex trafficking, the prevalence of it, and the laws, and etc. Miss Felicia will join me every so often throughout our season for discussions on a myriad of topics centered around our mission to stop abuse and abolish sex trafficking. So without further delay, Felicia Ingram, welcome to our studio.
Thank you so much, Annie, for having me as a guest in your show. I'm privileged to be able to provide information for our audience, and I'm just happy to be a great resource for you and everybody who is listening.
And I'm gonna tell you, we have a large amount of people on our group, the Facebook group, R.E.I.G.N, Stop Abuse and Abolish Sex Trafficking, and you definitely stood out as one of our members who are consistently participating, and so that's why we were able to connect and really put our hands to the plow. So I really applaud you for that, and I applaud you for desiring to help those who are in our vulnerable population. So kudos to you, and many hand claps. You're welcome. Let's go ahead and get started. Oh, you're welcome, honey. You're welcome. I thank you really because, like I said, for a minute I was the only one putting articles up and reading and stuff like that. So I'm just so glad to have you on board. We're going to go ahead and get started. And so I want you, Felicia, to kind of describe for our listeners what survival sex looks like.
Okay. Well, first of all, our listeners need to understand that survival sex is not a financial transaction. And many times the young people are having to do is they're exchanging their bodies for basic needs of clothing, food, and shelter. And I don't believe at the time when they're doing this, they realize that this, could be a long-term situation. Obviously, they end up on the street because of maybe they're leaving a physical or abusive situation. So they just have no idea. They may think once they get out in the street that they'll be able to find some place to live, food and that sort of thing. But what happens is they get out and they find that things aren't as easy. As you mentioned, a lot of these youth don't have a means to support themselves. They don't have jobs. So what ends up happening is they end up running into somebody and they'll promise them a place to live, but they'll say, well, you need to, exchange yourself in order for me to provide you a place to live, food, etc. So I believe that our young people really don't understand what they may run into by running away from a situation.
And that's why, we really wanted to sit and talk about this because, first of all, for a teen, for the majority anyway, are not running away for some, frivolous situation. For them to feel like they need to run away from that situation, it must be pretty bad at home. And like you said, survival sex is not exchanging sex for money. It is exchanging sex for food, for basic necessities. And that breaks my heart, that we have children. These are kids. They're under 18. These are kids. And for us to, if you really think about it, they're being made, well, and again, I know some of our listeners are saying, okay, well, they're the ones that ran away, but they're put in a position to feel that running away is the only means for which they can actually survive whatever's going on, survive to the next stage of life. And so, and they come with that they get hit with that brutal reality that, oh my gosh, I don't have no way to get something to eat, or, even the basic thing of having a place to go take a dump, I don't like using public bathrooms too often now. Obviously, when I'm out in public somewhere, I will, and I take care in making sure that blah blah blah. But these kids don't even have a place to go and excrete in a private area, and so it breaks my heart. So thank you for bringing that up. And also, again, when we're talking about sex trafficking, sometimes when you read about survival sex, you'll also read that they're categorized, those teens who have run away and is utilizing survival sex, they are looked upon as trafficking victims. And so because of the situation forcing them to use their bodies to in exchange for basic needs. So so that is, but really, when we're looking at sex trafficking, that is where it's forced, coerced, manipulated into having sex with Johns, and the victim gets no financial gain. So there is a slight difference in the two. And then, of course, you have prostitution where it's more of a choice, but a lot of times, again, that can be, kind of discussed that, some prostitutes feel like they have no choice either. But there is an exchange for money. Survival sex is exchange of sex for basic needs. Do you think that kind of sums it up, Felicia?
Correct. But I just wanted to also say that sometimes survival sex ends up into trafficking, as you mentioned. It may start off maybe being with an older person, and then the older person ends up sharing that person with a friend. And then sometimes the person can be kidnapped or exploited, and then it ends up turning into sex trafficking. So
that's right.
You have those types of instances as well, that the youth have no idea. Like you mentioned, they leave the home thinking that leaving the home situation, they'll find a better situation, but many times they end up in a worse situation than they could have imagined. So it's very bad. Very bad.
And that's really good that you bring that up, because, they're subject to the possibility of so many bad things happening to them when they run away. And that sex trafficking, you and I know, is absolutely no joke. It's horrendous.
No,
the grooming, the conditioning, what they go through. I was reading about a 5-year-old girl who was being raped by a family member for years, and she finally ran away and was utilizing survival sex, found an older man, and began to live with him. And then, and trading sex. There was no love there. She was just trying to survive. So she was his concubine, or whatever you want to call it, his sex toy. And then he would invite others to come and begin having sex with her. And then one of them actually kidnapped her and forced her into sex trafficking. And she was caught up in that for 3 months before she was able to, get to escape. And at that point, she was 19. So just think of her life, starting at the age of 5, being so marginalized and objectified that, she is worth nothing but to get a orgasm from. What goes on in her mind, and what has had to happen for her to transition beyond that and to be able to thrive. So, I'm sad. I pray and I hope that she is living a life abundant at this time. But what she went through as a baby, when I just think about it, again, it just brings tears to my eyes, that the need for this sex is so strong that it overrides all sense and sensibility, compassion, for the human. I just can't understand it.
Yeah, it's terrible to hear so many stories like that you wonder how people survive it in the end. But people do find a way to survive. They meet the right person that can support them and help them, and you just keep praying that these people run into the right people that can help them.
Amen.
So, Annie, are teens using safe sex when they're out there and there's survival sex?
And I'm going to answer that question in 2 minutes. Right around now, we got to take a moment for a station identification. So when I come back, Felicia, I'll definitely answer that question. So everybody, please hold on to your wigs. We'll be right back.
Hello, my name is Minister Lloyd Bell Jr., CEO of We Inspire Network Radio.
God bless you, and I am Minister Annie Bell, the COO of We Inspire Network Radio. We had you, our listeners, in mind when we created We Inspire Network Radio, or as we like to call it, WIN Radio.
We incorporated your thoughts and opinions to ensure that our programming will embody true inspiration.
And we will continue to bring relevant and heartfelt shows that cater to the needs and wants of our growing listener base.
Please subscribe to our network so that you can stay connected.
Join us here every week,
where together, through God, we win.
Welcome back to R.E.I.G.N Blog Talk Radio Show with your host, Minister Annie Bell.
Thank you so much, and welcome back to R.E.I.G.N Blog Talk Radio Show on We Inspire Network Radio. I am your host, Minister Annie Bell. For those who might be interested in sponsoring a show or advertising on our shows, please contact our marketing department at 201-477-0469. We have advertising packages that run as low as $150 per week, and it goes towards our efforts to fight this battle against child abuse, sex trafficking, and helping people to thrive, those who have survived it. We are back with Felicia Ingram, who again is an anti-human trafficking advocate and one of the administrators of the R.E.I.G.N Facebook group. So welcome back, Felicia.
Thank you, Annie.
And I want to answer the question that you had posed as far as, are they having safe sex? And the answer is a no. Now, to be very candid, most people looking for sex in the wrong places, these I call them the perverted, those who are just not trying to be upstanding. They also don't want to wear condoms. Most of the time, they want to feel skin on skin, flesh on flesh. So whoever is providing the survival need, so whoever has the house or the food or the clothes, are the ones that are calling the shots, leaving the victim without too many options. So, if they want to eat or if they want to have some shelter, I mean, that's a pretty, big thing to have to contemplate, because AIDS is still running rampant out here, and other STDs. And so it's like it's still Russian roulette as far as I can see, because they either could die without having their needs met, and then they could die by having sex with the wrong person, because especially those who are there's a lot who are infected with either the AIDS virus or the HIV, or has the HIV. A lot of them, some of them are, if they're already in that predatory mindset, they don't really care that it could spread to anyone else. I was reading about, and this kind of off the subject just a little bit, but in Africa, the AIDS virus runs rampant, but there's some kind of ritual that young girls have to go through. And this one guy, he was AIDS. He was positive with the AIDS virus. And they were allowing their daughters, virgin daughters, to have sex with this grown man to, bring them into the age of puberty or whatever. And it's like, where can somebody please rationalize that for me? Because it makes no sense. But again, to answer your question, no, they're most of the time they're not using safe sex.
Right. Yeah, I think maybe a lot of times they don't have access to condoms either. If they don't have funds to obviously to be able to for food and shelter, then they're not going to have funds to be able to afford to buy a condom. So
and they don't even know where to go, because there are resources where you can get some free condoms, but they don't know that it's available. So between those three elements, it's pretty safe to say that no, they're not. So when we're trying to, as we're having this conversation, Felicia, about how many of our nation's youth are running away from home.
Well, in the United States, it's between 1.6 and 2.8 million runaways. And many are running away as between the ages of as young as 10 to 14 years old. And, they're even more at a high risk of dangers on the street.
Sure.
But, of course, there are situations, as we've discussed, they're trying to run away from abusive situations, and even there are cases where these young kids are thrown out of their homes as well. I mean, if you have a parent that has alcoholism or drug abuse problems, they're not even going to know if the kid is gone. But I think at some point, some of these young kids, they figure their home life is so bad that how bad can living outside the house be? They have no idea what they may be getting into. But it's a horrible situation.
And that's a large number. I mean, that's I don't know how many teens are in the United States, but 1.5 to 2.2 million. That's a lot of runaways that are in our streets, that are just on our streets. And that leads to what you were saying, that some of the reasons that they're running away from home. 80% of those who run away from home are running away from physical or sexual abuse at home. As we were saying, if a person is being sexually abused at home, then there is a higher propensity for them to turn around and use their body to survive on the streets. And when we look at the statistics, there 70 to 85% of female prostitutes. I didn't look up the statistics for males, because yes, there are male prostitutes out there. The prostitutes were sexually abused at home, and so there is this conditioning that goes on, and again, the continuing of the okay, every once in a while a word will come up. Objectification of our female population that starts at a very young age. And so then we wonder why. And, even grown women on Facebook are doing the poses with, their backside showing and their breasts and cleavage just out there for any and everybody to look at, because they were being conditioned at a young age to use their body and to show their body, to get their value and their worth. And so we can't keep on saying, why is she doing that? We got to look at, what happened? What happened to her? And that's one of the things of we in our counseling that we do. We use the STAR method, which is strategic trauma and abuse recovery method. And we don't look at you and look at the person who is coming for counseling and say, what is your problem? We look at what happened to them. What happened to you? And so these kids who are being abused at home, they run away, and again, they're using their bodies this, the same reason that they left home, they're now, because of the sexual abuse especially, now they have to endure it out in the streets. Now, I read where one young lady, she said, well, I'd rather do it because I have decided to exchange my body for whatever, whereas at home I was forced. So there's a feeling of independence that comes over them when they do leave their home. Now, some of them are actually being kicked out the homes, like you were saying. Some of them are being kicked out because of their sexual lifestyle choice, whether they're LGBT and Q. They also there's one gentleman that was interviewed said that there's no way that he could have ever come out, even though he was being physically abused at home. He could have never come out of the proverbial closet because they just did not accept it, that lifestyle. And then you have some families who will kick the child out because of financial strain. They just can't they feel like they can't take care of the child any longer. Again, that to me is abuse, because that's, that falls under the neglect. And we know that abuse comes in so many 5 different categories, and neglect is one of them. And so that those are the reasons that we have found for people, kids who are running away from home.
Right. It's a very difficult situation. I can't even imagine. Because I felt I had a good upbringing, so I can't even imagine of being out in the street and how isolated or how lonely you feel, or how do you feel what your worth is when you've been told to leave, or you feel like you're forced to leave.
Right.
That has to be a scary thought of being out there on your own. And when you're out there like that, it doesn't take very long before somebody to notice. You're probably like a fly on the wall to somebody when they see you, that they can tell you're vulnerable.
Yes.
So I think that makes things even worse. Like the girl you just said, that I feel like, I'm able to use my body, but that's a shame that when she was living at her home, she was forced into the physical, but now she still has to use her body in another way. She feels like she has control, but she really doesn't, because she's using it as a way to survive.
Exactly. Now, I was abused as a child. I went through sexual abuse. I actually went through almost all of them except for neglect. But there was some physical abuse. There was a lot of emotional and mental abuse, and the sexual abuse was the most prevalent. And and because of the grooming and the conditioning, was all that mental stuff that went on. And I considered running away. I did. But I also have a disability. And so I had to think through it and say, okay, am I jumping? And I didn't say these particular words, but basically, am I jumping out of the pot and into the fire? How am I going to, get the my brace that I need to be able to walk, and blah blah blah. So, I thought of running away. I thought of homicide, and I definitely thought of suicide, and tried to commit suicide at one point. So it is a humongous decision that a child has to make,
Right.
Forced into making decisions like, okay, should I kill myself, kill him, run away? Come on, that's just too much for a child to have to really consider.
Right.
And so now, Felicia, could you then, I want to talk a little bit about prevention. Could you share with us some ways to prevent youth from running away? You have about a minute, and then we'll come back after our commercial, and then you can continue if you need more time. But what are some ways that we can prevent that?
All right. I know, a lot of times when teens are going through a bad time, it's very important that parents provide a positive feedback when they're dealing with their teens. Always try and praise them whenever possible. Don't scream or yell or threaten your child. When you do these types of things, it reinforces their mind to think, okay, I think I need to run away. There's a certain way that a lot of kids are vulnerable when they're teens, so you have to find a way to be able to talk to them. And, not always say things out of anger to your child. There's a certain way that you have to sit down and talk with your child. If a child wants to run away, give them warning signs, saying, listen, if you run away, I can't stop you, but, it's really dangerous out there. And I won't be able to protect you. If you run into trouble, I can't help you. So you really have to have that heart-to-heart, or even if it's not yourself, somebody else that they're close with, another relative that they're very close with. It's very important to keep that line of communication open with your teenager.
And if you'll put a bookmark right there, we're going to take a quick break and come back and hear the rest of your really wise things that you are saying to us parents. So everybody, please stay put. We'll be right back. Hello, everybody. My name is Minister Annie Bell, and I am the host of R.E.I.G.N Blog Talk Radio Show, where we endeavor to bring talk therapy to survivors of child abuse, sex trafficking, and other traumas, as well as being the vehicle by which we use to bring awareness and resources to the community to aid in the prevention of these abuses. R.E.I.G.N, which is a declarative acronym for the individual survivor. That means I identify myself as a survivor, no longer a victim. R, reclaim my life. E, excel at living. G, grow in Christ. And N, nurture myself and others. This declarative acronym has developed into a victorious lifestyle brand that empowers and aids in the healing journey of survivors of abuse, sex trafficking, and other traumas. I have also written a book entitled, with the namesake, R.E.I.G.N, A Survivor's Guide to Thrive, which is now available at Amazon.com and Barnes & Noble. Pick up your copy of my book today and join me every Tuesday night at 8 p.m. here on We Inspire Network Radio, where together, through God, we win. If we endure, we will reign with Christ.
Welcome back to R.E.I.G.N Blog Talk Radio Show with your host, Minister Annie Bell.
Like he said, welcome back, everybody, to the R.E.I.G.N Blog Talk Radio Show, powered by We Inspire Network Radio. Again, I am Minister Annie Bell, your host. We are one of the many outreaches of Wealth Management Ministries, which is a 501c3 nonprofit organization, and we endeavor to bridge the gap between the rich and the poor through the teaching of financial literacy and Christian counseling. We have begun our virtual wealth coaching, life coaching, and Christian counseling sessions, which is now available. If you would like, and there is a complimentary 20-minute session that we are making available to our new clients. So give us a call. Our rates are very affordable because we want to make sure that those who need it can get the help they need. We are back with Miss Felicia Ingram, and she was talking about one of the ways that we could actually prevent our children from running away from home. Felicia, welcome back.
Thank you, Annie. I want to provide a couple more solutions or ways that you can really keep that line of communication with your teenager. You need to have a system where you can check in with your teenager frequently, just ask, how was your day? Is everything okay? I'm really interested in you, and I really care. So if you have any problems, I'd like us to discuss it. I think many parents feel when children, are a certain age that it's time to give them their freedom. But I think most experts totally disagree with that. It's very important that you keep an eye on your child, especially in these days with the different apps that are on phones and ways that that children or teenagers can be lured away. So it's very important that parents become aware of what's going on with their children.
I agree.
And when it comes to talking to your teenager, it's very important that even if you don't agree with what they said, to at least listen to their side and then calmly give your side. I think it's very difficult. Once again, with relationships between parents and children, that you really have to, both sides have to come together and have a reasonable conversation.
Yes.
And not have any yelling and screaming, because that helps nothing. So I think it's very important that parents and their children sit down and discuss situations. I think parents need to teach their teens problem-solving skills. What can be done differently to solve a problem. It's very difficult when teenagers have a problem. They have trouble trying to figure things out. So you really have to teach the child there's always a solution to everything, and not to always think there's a negative solution. That there's always a positive solution, and sometimes solutions take time. Not everything happens overnight, and not to panic if something doesn't happen, quickly. Sometimes things take time, and there's always a way to deal with the problem. I think those are some ways of prevention. And if you do find that you're still having difficulty with your teenagers, then you really need to seek professional help. There's always resources out there that can help you, whether or not it be guidance counselor at your school, maybe a church. A lot of times there's people at churches that provide resources for families with teenagers that can help.
Well, those are, I think those are really great preventative things that we could do. And listen, I don't think that you're talking about some euphoric family environment. We are human. Yes, we will, yell sometimes, and yes, we will lose our temper sometimes. We're not saying that can never happen, but they have to see a resolution. I am a bad yeller. I yell when I get mad. I really do. I don't throw things. I don't break things, but I will yell. And my kids are at a point in their lives. They're at that age where I'm like, really? Are you really doing this? And I found myself a couple of weeks ago just shrieking. I mean, I was yelling so hard, and my kids were looking at me like I had two heads. And in that moment, I was about to get even more angry, but I was like, wait a minute, why am I shrieking like a banshee? And what could they be thinking? Could they be thinking, all right, it's better for me to leave this place. This woman is crazy. So I had to really check myself. I had to pull myself back and say, Annie, now mind you guys, I am a minister. I am a counselor. I am, a wealth coach, a life coach, and here I am going off. Okay, so and I have training in this area. So if I lost it, I know it could be easy for those who don't have training in this area to lose it. So we're not saying you have to be perfect, because we're not. Yeah. But you got to be able to pull yourself back and say, okay, wait a minute. I didn't mean to yell at you like that. Let me take a moment. And my kids have heard me say this many times. Let me take a moment before I go off. Okay? And so they'll know, okay, mommy is right at that, line. Let me go sit down and be quiet for about 5 minutes. And so we just have to teach our children, and that's part of the problem solving as well. So I think those are really good points that you brought up that we could take one at a time and try to work on. And, some things might need a bit more attention, urgent attention than the other. You might be able to do some simultaneous stuff. The other good point I think you made was being interested in our children, because some of the traffickers, that's what they do. They, even though they're acting, they show that they are interest in what, in that person. And so once they find a victim that they can possibly prey on, they'll go and just act genuinely interested, like, oh, how was your day? Oh, what do you mean, that happened? What do you like? And stuff like that, because we as humans, we want that type of interaction. We desire it. We yearn, especially our children. They have to attach to us emotionally so that they won't have an attachment disorder, or even then go out and look for someone to attach to. So, these are your kids, whether you adopted them or whether you birthed them out your womb, they're your babies. So take interest in what they're interested in. I think that's an easy fix. These are all very practical and easy fixes that you brought up, Felicia. So thank you for that.
Right. I think it's important, even if the child, when your child, or even when you're a teenager yourself, sometimes, okay, you don't want your parents around, or you feel like you're grown. But I think a parent showing interest in a child is very important. Yes. It shows that you care, even if the child doesn't want to be bothered. The fact that you are concerned and you ask, that I think that would bring some support to the child. I think that's very important.
Yes. Very good.
So, Annie, there might be a youth out there looking to find themselves in a situation where they feel they have no choice but to run away. What should they do?
And that's, it's a hard question and an easy question. And I wanted to interject this. I forgot to interject this earlier because you had mentioned, as far as the prevention is concerned, that we shouldn't, make our children so mad, that they want to run away. That and there's a Bible verse, Ephesians 6:4, that says, "Fathers, do not exasperate your children. Instead, bring them up in the training and instruction of the Lord." So there's other versions that says, "Don't provoke them." Because I believe it's because the Lord knows what could happen when we do provoke. That doesn't mean that we don't redirect, that we don't, make sure that we're raising our kids, but that we don't exasperate them. But to what you were asking, unless there is imminent danger right at that moment, if a person in your home is about to kill you or rape you savagely, I would say take some time to make an escape plan first. If you believe that you're in a situation where you cannot be there too much longer, make a plan. Haste normally will bring more repercussions and bad consequences when we act out of haste. So take a minute and think about it. Make a list of trusted people that you can turn to. Some people may not, there's people out there that have no family and no friends. I understand that. But even if you figure out one person that you think that you can trust, that you could go to, also think about, okay, how can I get my hands on some money? In the world we live in, we need the money and the resources. When you're thinking about packing your bag, think about your toothpaste, your toothbrushes, lotions, sundries, stuff like that to pack as well. Don't just leave with a couple set of clothes and 2 underwear. make sure that you're prepared to be out on the street, because the street is dangerous. It's dangerous. Ask yourself these questions as well. Do I have a place to stay? What about school? Are you going to continue your education? Am I going to be gone a while or come back in a few days? Do you think that'll leaving for a little while and coming back will get your parents to act right? What are you going to do for shelter and food and transportation? Who can you depend on if you were to leave? Again, do you have a safe and solid plan? And what if plan A doesn't work? Do you have a plan B? Some of the things, and these are the next three questions are, kind of self-assessments. Is, have I done all that I can to make things better at home? And I'm not talking about when you're in an abusive home. It's not your fault. Okay, with the sexual abuse or neglect, those things are not your fault. But is there anything that you could do that will make it better at home? Is there, have you kind of reached out to, make things better at home? Those are the things I think I would definitely tell the runaway to think about. Also call the runaway hotline to get some guidance on agencies that are in your area. If you're in an abusive situation, call the police and get some help. But I guess my whole thing here is don't run away in haste if you're not in imminent danger, but take time to make a feasible plan so that you don't find yourself in a situation where you're having to have survival sex. It is that time again where I have to take my one last break. So everybody, if you'll please stay tuned. I'll be right back after this message. Thank you so much.
Sadly, today, most of us know at least one person that suffers from addiction or substance abuse. Addiction does not discriminate. No age, gender, race, or classes of people are immune to the horrors of addiction. This epidemic has ruined families, claimed lives, and left loved ones devastated. Over 100 people die from overdoses daily, and over 20 million Americans suffer from some form of addiction. For this reason, author R.E.I.G.N. Jr. has written the book Clean and Serene. The author is an addictions counselor and recovering addict of over 13 years. He knows and has first-hand experience of being caught in the grips of addiction. Clean and Serene provides experience, strength, and hope for the still suffering addict. It can also be used as a tool in recovery. Whether it is used in a group setting or individually, this book was written to assist in the recovery process and encourage. Integrating inspirational, encouraging, and challenging scriptures, the author has provided a resource that is sure to change lives. If you or someone you know is battling with addiction, this book is for you. If you are in recovery, this is a great resource to add to your toolbox. If you are a group leader or addictions counselor, this is an awesome book for group therapy. Clean and Serene. Scriptural Meditations for Recovery is available nationwide in both ebook and print. Get your copy or a copy for some you know today from Amazon or Barnes & Noble bookstore. For less than $10, you can potentially change the life of someone currently paying the high cost of living with an addiction.
Welcome back to R.E.I.G.N. Blog Talk Radio Show with your host, Minister Annie Bell.
Again, welcome back to our last quarter hour. You have joined us at R.E.I.G.N. Blog Talk Radio Show, and I am Minister Annie Bell. I do want to issue a trigger warning for survivors of whether it is abuse or sex trafficking, or maybe you were a runaway who had to resort to survival sex. If it has triggered something within you, don't suffer alone. Reach out to us. You can find me on Facebook at R.E.I.G.N. Stop Abuse and Abolish Sex Trafficking. We also have the Thursday night at 9:30, we have intercessory prayer. You're definitely welcome to call in. It's 530-881-1212, access code 225-184-078. If I said that too fast, just look down in your screen. You should see one of our advertisements that shows the prayer call. You're not alone in this battle, so please don't suffer by yourself. We're here to help you. We're back with Miss Felicia Ingram, and we're talking about survival sex. And I just finished talking about, what to do if you're in a situation where you feel like you had to run away. Now, Felicia, can you name 2 agencies that a youth can turn to if they want to get off the streets? So they're already on the streets. Who can they turn to?
Sure. Well, first of all, I want to say you had some great points for youth to consider before they run away, and there were some of the things that I didn't even consider myself. But one of the first places I want to name is Covenant House. Covenant House is a place that has it's in over 30 cities. It's in Canada and Latin America. And you would be able to find out about Covenant House through the 1-800-RUNAWAY number. That they could place you in one of the resources by calling that number. Another place is, there are a couple more places called Promise House and Safe Horizon. And they all have Safe Horizon. They all these places have places for you to stay. They have services, and there are people there to help. So don't hesitate to call any of these agencies. But I believe the 1-800-RUNAWAY would be a place to start. So they're available 24/7. So there's always somebody there to help.
That sounds great.
I also wanted to mention a Trafficking Prevention Act that's been out for a while. It's called the R.E.I.G.N. It's called Running and Homeless Youth and Trafficking Prevention Act. I know it's a mouthful.
Yeah.
But it's kind of stalled. It's been stalling in Congress for a number, about 3 years. And I believe some of the barriers are mental health services themselves, education, job training, and long-term housing. And actually there's been a lot on Facebook, a lot of petitions going around for people to sign or to send information to your representatives to pass this act. It's probably one of the few ways, the only ways that's really going to get resources available for runaway or homeless youth. I can tell you that here in Connecticut, they are doing something. They've recently provided funding for housing through different organizations, and they're also going to be providing additional money for services. So it's very important that cities and states get involved in finding ways to end this cycle for youth. So there are states that are working on this.
That sounds great. It sounds like there's a lot of efforts and thought, considerations being put towards it. So that's great. And that's the R-H-Y-T as in Tom, P as in Paul, A, if you want to look that up for those who are listening in.
Oh, and Annie, what about you? Do you have any helpful resources?
I just have a couple things. The runaway hotline that I have is 1-800-786-2929, and it is nationwide, and it is 24 hours, 7 days a week. So even on holidays, so feel free to connect. It's also, if you can look it up on 1-800-runaway.org. This particular outreach is in Chicago, but I believe that they'll also be able to get you some resources and find you some numbers that you can call within your local area if the other 800 number does not work. Now, for those who are in the LGBTQ community, there is another hotline specifically for you because we understand that the plight is different, being in that community and not feeling secure about coming out, or if your parents have abandoned you because of that. There's other things going on that this particular organization can speak to, and that is the glbthotline.org. Again, GLB like boy, T like Tom, hotline.org. Or you can call them at 1-800-246-7743. Also, we are, for churches and organizations, we are doing what's known as a Triumph Tour. And basically what we're doing is going out and training and equipping churches, because guess what? The population of the 1.5 million to 2 million children who are, in the streets, they could walk into your church. You got to know how to handle that. Out of the million kids who are abused every year, they could be sitting in your pews. How are you giving care to them? How can we get the communities to be more educated and more aware, to be able to recognize sex trafficking victims and traffickers, as well as those who are being abused at home in a domestic violence situation or child abuse? We want to help equip the churches and the organization and the community as a whole. So give us a call so we can also help you do that as well. Felicia, you have really, I think, just came with some great information, and I want to really thank you for taking the time to come out and sharing all this information. And we will be back on December the 13th, I believe, and we're going to be talking about the signs, how to recognize sex trafficking. So, stay tuned for that. So, Felicia, again, thank you so much for, doing what you're doing and advocating for those who are vulnerable and unable to advocate for themselves.
Well, thank you very much for having me, Annie. It's been a pleasure, and I'm learning a lot from you, and I really enjoy sharing all that I do share with the listeners. I really appreciate it.
Thank you. Thank you. All right, guys, it's that time where we have to go our separate ways, but know that I'm with you in spirit. God is always with you, so you're never alone. My wisdom to reign for this week is sometimes God gives you your blessings in seed form. So first of all, you need to recognize what seed it was and plant it, nurture it, and watch it grow. To make a donation or get in touch with me or my team, please go to www.wealthmngt.org or www.anniebellministries.com. Follow us on Facebook and Twitter at R.E.I.G.N, Stop Abuse and Abolish Sex Trafficking. You can also go to the YouTube channel and find us there, R.E.I.G.N Blog Talk, and become a subscriber so that you will not miss a beat. All of our shows are loaded that week so that you won't, you won't miss it. Even if you did miss it, you can still catch it. Now, and lastly, don't forget to pick up my book, R.E.I.G.N, A Survivor's Guide to Thrive. I know that if you are not a survivor, that you may know someone who is, or maybe someone in the midst of. So please for them. So repeat after me. I reclaim my life. I excel at living. I illuminate the dark. I grow in Christ, and I nurture myself and others. Let's reign together with Christ. See you next Tuesday at 8 p.m. Thank you, everybody. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye.